Hey girls, Erin Davis here, checking in for week 4 of our first ever Lies Young Women Believe Summer Book Club. That's a mouthful, but I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. This week the study was all about discipline, and discipline can feel like something that's not interesting, and often discipline is no fun. But it's really important, and we'll talk about why in a minute. As I was doing this week's study and thinking about discipline, I remembered when my dad was trying to teach me to drive. Now, you should know I might have been the world's worst driver. He was always telling me I had a lead foot, which means I liked to speed. And I got in several accidents that first year, and I wasn't a very self-controlled driver. So my dad had a challenge in teaching me to drive. And what I remember about that time is that I was learning to drive, he was always pushing on this imaginary brake. So I was in the driver's side, he was in the passenger side. He had no power to stop the car, but that didn't stop him from putting his foot on the brake and trying to get me to slow down. And I think that self-control and discipline can feel a lot like that. There's areas of our life that we know we need self-control. We would like to be more disciplined, and we're kind of putting some effort forth and trying, but it's like pushing on an imaginary brake. Nothing's happening. Some areas in the study that they mentioned that I think all of us need self-control is our mouth, what we say, or more importantly, maybe what we don't say, our thoughts, our time, our eating, our spending, our emotions. And I don't know about you, but I hit Monday morning and I want to have self-control. I want to live a disciplined life, but I just can't seem to master it most weeks. But here is why it matters that I continue to ask the Lord for help. Proverbs 25:28 says, "A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls." Now, our cities don't have walls, so sometimes these word pictures the Bible paints for us can be a little bit hard to grasp for our modern minds. But when this passage was written, all cities had walls, and that protected the people within the walls from people just coming and invading and attacking and taking what they wanted. A city without walls was vulnerable to the enemy's attack. And that'll preach. Because when we don't have self-control, we are vulnerable to the enemy's attack. We are vulnerable to living lives that God would never have us to live. But I know it still feels like that imaginary brake, right? So here's the secret. You cannot put the brakes on your life on your own. You cannot build the wall on your own. You need God's help to do that. 2 Timothy 2:3-5 was a passage that Mary and Nancy referenced in this week's study. And it talked about knowing godliness, having an understanding of godliness, but denying its power. It's God who gives us the power to have self-control. We need His help to be disciplined. We can't do it on our own. And so this week's study asked you, are you a relier or a denier? Do you rely on the truth of God, or do you deny that God has power to give you self-control? So that's my question for you. What area of your life do you need greater self-control? Where do you need discipline? And are you trying to pump the brakes on your own, or are you relying on the power of God to give you victory there? I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a comment below. I will still have some copies of True Woman 201 to give away, so I'll choose a couple of you and give that away, and all of this information will be in a blog post below. Can't wait to hear from you again soon. We'll be studying week 5 in True Woman.